you might need. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. I hope this works. I hope you can see my screen now. Gabby or Christina, could you give me a thumbs up if that's working?
We can indeed.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So we're here today to talk about the University of Leeds. And as it says there in big red block, one of the top 100 universities in the world, something that I know lots of UK universities are always very keen to talk about their rankings, where they fall in those annual lists which are released. Maybe something which our US colleagues talk about less. And I do think that rankings always need to be taken with a bit of a pinch of salt. The most important thing is finding the institution, the course, the place, the city, which is the right match for you. So hopefully today I can tell you a little bit about, what qualifies us to be one of those top 100 universities, but also something a little bit about the personality and the sense of who the university is, which I know is so important to our students. So why Leeds? So lots of blocks with statistics on here, reasons why you should maybe choose to come and study at Leeds. Well, my favourite one out of these is 31st most international university in the world. What do we mean by international? Of course, the number of international students that we have plays into this, and that is part of it. But it's also to do with our faculty, where our academic members of staff are from, where they've worked before, the research networks that we belong to, the partnerships that we have with other universities around the world, either in teaching or in research, where we send our current students out to take elective modules and study abroad programs and things like that. And, it's about that whole ecosystem of where the university sits beyond the boundaries just of the UK. We appreciate that universities are kind of under attack from a lot of fronts at the moment. There are various pressures which seem to be trying to force institutions to think more narrowly. Well, at Leeds, we're very much not about that. We think that knowledge shared is knowledge gained and grown. So, we're very keen to promote those international links that we have all over the world. And certainly the students that we have coming from the US have been a great asset to us over the years. We're ranked, variously, as I say, top 100 in the world, 16th in Europe. Something that we're quite keen to work on at the moment is the employability angle. So for those students who are coming to us, perhaps not for their PhDs, but particularly the master's students and certainly the bachelor students, they want to understand how the academic knowledge that they gain on the course is going to translate into tangible career benefits later down the line. So we've got various schemes, various programs running on to make sure that not only are students picking up on the top quality education, they are able to translate this into meaningful outcomes for them when they enter the job market. There's another one there, top 10 best student city in the UK. I mean, to talk a little bit about the city of Leeds, because I'm aware may not be that familiar to everyone joining the call here today. Leeds is one of the largest cities in the UK. It's the third largest by population, and we're based slap bang in the middle of the UK. So it's exactly 200 miles from London and 200 miles from Edinburgh. So right there in the middle. It's quite a large city. It's certainly a lively city. There are 2 very big universities in Leeds, plus about 3 or 4 other smaller ones. So we've got a very large student population, which really does lend itself to that student life on campus, a very international, student-friendly place, lots of things to see and do whilst you're studying there. It is one of the UK's largest centres for business, legal and financial services. So actually outside of London, we have the highest concentration of law firms, accountancies, professional consultancies, these kinds of organisations. And we've really leaned into that in terms of the industrial links that we forge at the university, giving some of those opportunities to our students to take on placements, to network and interact with some of these organisations. It's not all about business, though. It's quite well known in the UK for being an artistic city. I think outside of London, we're the only place to have our own opera and ballet, the resident here in the city. Very big for sport, Leeds United Football Club, now back in the Premier League, historically one of the big teams in England. But, there's a really thriving music scene going on here as well. So if you do decide to come and study at Leeds, rest assured that whilst your head will be in the books for lots of it, there's plenty of fun, engaging things to do outside of the classroom as well. We are located right in the centre of the UK. We do have our own international airport at Leeds, just down the road in Manchester, not too far away, 45, 50 minutes drive away. There's a big international airport which does have direct flights to the US. You can go West Coast, East Coast. There might even be one to Texas from there as well. But should you need to transfer, there are quick links from Leeds going through Schiphol, from Heathrow, from various big international hubs. It's quite a picturesque city, a real mix of the old and the new. It's very famous for its shopping, very famous for its nightlife, and very famous for its kind of student atmosphere. So if you do have time and want to do a little bit more research, go onto YouTube, have a look at some of the videos there. There are 1,001 different reviews that students have left about their time in Leeds, what it was like to live there. And the ones that I've seen always talk about it in really glowing terms. So yeah, feel free to go and have a look at that if you choose to find out a little bit more. As a university, we're a campus university. So everything that you can see there on the slide pretty much is the university campus, but we're right next to the city centre. So it's a real nice blend of having that, collegiate atmosphere, everyone on campus together, all of the accommodations, well, lots of the accommodations you can have, you see here are highlighted in blue, but the libraries right on the campus, sports facilities, the learning facilities, different schools, everything's based there all together. But it is just a 10-minute walk to the city centre, where you've got the train station, where you've got the shops, the restaurants, the nightlife, everything's all there together in one place. It's a wonderful campus. We've been around since 1904. So the original buildings are still there, but obviously it's grown and grown over time. So there's a real mixture of old traditional Harry Potter-esque buildings that we know a lot of our international students really want to get when they come to the UK for education, with some really modern cutting-edge facilities there as well. So as I say, established in 1904, we are a member of something called the Russell Group. The Russell Group is the top 24 research-intensive institutions in the UK. So these are the institutions that undertake the vast majority of the research and get the research funding. So alongside Oxford, Cambridge, Manchester, Leeds, Imperial, UCL, it's kind of the well-known universities that you've probably come across when you've been doing your research into studying in the UK. We are quite a big university. So we've got, at the moment, around 39,000 students. It does oscillate a bit, early 40s, late 30s, but they are coming to us from all over the world. More than 130 countries represented. And as of today, as of this year, we've got 174 American students currently enrolled across a really wide range of programs. That's from bachelor's all the way up to PhD. So a big, and I should say growing, group of US students on campus. But, if you come to Leeds, you will be studying alongside students from Brazil and China and Australia and Europe and kind of everywhere you can imagine in the world. We've got one of the largest offerings of different programs available. So 300 different bachelor's programs, more than 200 different master's programs. And, when it comes to PhD study, well, that really depends on what area your research is in and whether or not we supervise that. But across the 7 faculties that we have, which I've listed there, we are supervising most things. All within these faculties, we'll have a number of different schools. The school is really the home of the education. So you're a member of the school, they'll do your induction. That's where most of your classes will take place. But the faculties, which are those collections of schools, we've got arts, biological sciences, we've got business, engineering, environment, medicine and health, social sciences. So within these, there aren't many subjects that we don't teach to some degree at Leeds. If you want to put in the chat your area of focus, your preferred discipline, that would be really helpful for me, maybe in tailoring some of the content as we go through. So feel free just to pop in the chat the broad area or the specific area, if you know it, that you might be interested in. I mentioned before about employability and opportunities. We are really focused on this at the moment. It's really in response to what our students are telling us. So we do have a dedicated career centre, and within that dedicated staff who are working with international students about their employability opportunities. Everything is extended to all students, whether you're a UK resident, whether you're American, whether you're from Nigeria, the same provision is given to all of our students. And we don't just start this from when you arrive at the university. For the first time this year, we've got a new program running, initially focused around our master's students, but available to all, called Jumpstart. So this is pre-arrival careers portal that students can access. So you can start accessing some of those facilities, start building up your CV, your portfolio, getting an idea about what you're going to be doing alongside the academic studies at Leeds. So it's almost trailing you in, so that by the time that you start studying in September, if you do decide that you want to stay on and work in the UK afterwards, you've done a bit of that prep work, which means that you're ready for those graduate scheme interviews, for those things that do start quite early on in the academic term. There's lots of employer engagement going on. I mentioned a little bit earlier about the high concentration of legal and professional services who are based in Leeds. But whatever faculty you are in, we have dedicated faculty employability teams who are there to source these opportunities for you. So if you're an undergraduate student, I know it's probably quite a minority on the call today, there are opportunities to do full years in industry. So that's where you take a year out of your degree to work. But even if you're a master's student, there are opportunities to get involved in things like our global industry program, and other schemes that we've got going to help you match up that practical with the academic in the classroom. So yeah, just a little bit more about the international career sports. I mentioned the Jumpstart project, but we do have those specialist staff focusing on the international career aspects. There's discovery weeks where we invite lots of employers onto campus. They can help you with the graduate visa if you are thinking of transitioning to that after you finish, and some advice about how you can take your qualifications and go and work off in many other areas of the world, not just going back to the US, but should you decide that the next move for you is in Dubai or Europe or something like that, they can offer guidance on how our alumni have transitioned to those sorts of opportunities. We are very cognizant that moving from one country to another can be a challenge for students who have perhaps lived all of their life in one country and are now picking up sticks and moving across the world to study in another. So there is a lot of emphasis which is put around student life and student support for our international students. All students have their own personal tutor. So this is a designated member of staff with whom you have regular meetings that you schedule. And that they're of great help inside the classroom, but can also help you to navigate some of the outside of the classroom stuff that happens too. Probably not as relevant here, but understanding the different academic styles of study in a UK university versus what might be expected elsewhere. I think especially for our master's students, given that you are studying a master's in just 1 year, it's quite an intense program. So making sure that you are up and running on what's expected of you as quickly as possible is something that we found is very beneficial for the students. They've told us it's very beneficial for them. So, we do extend that support to all students to make sure that they are making the most of their potentially 1 year that they're studying here at Leeds. There's a full orientation program as well. So we get all of our international students in a week early and do international orientation. Again, this is about you settling in, opening up a bank account, making sure you're set in your accommodation, so that when teaching does start, usually at the end of September, you are ready to go. In terms of the facilities, I mentioned at the start of the presentation how, we're a campus that's grown organically since 1904, so it's that 122 years that we've been running. So there is a real mix of the old and the new, but even the old has probably been revamped within the last 5 to 10 years. We've got wonderful libraries on campus. You'll see the picture behind me here is actually our Brotherton Library. I studied my bachelor's and my master's at the University of Leeds before going away and working, ending up back here. But this is the library where I studied, especially when I was a bachelor's student. Really stunning library, traditional feeling to it, fantastic access to physical books, but obviously all of the digital libraries that we have now that students use for the majority of their studies. And for those of you who are potential PhD students, access to research journals, all of these sorts of things is all included in that provision as well. For any students who might be thinking about coming onto clinical or lab-based programs, really great state-of-the-art facilities there, whether that's in the faculties of medicine or biological sciences or some of our physical sciences. There's been a lot of investment in those areas. So, rest assured that if you are doing practical elements of the course, you are going to be using great equipment during that and being supported in that too by the full-time lab staff. outside of the classroom, really great gym facilities. You know, they were used pre their update by teams during the Olympics, when the Olympics were held in London just a short time ago. There's a great gym on campus, football, tennis, you know, everything you can think of is available there and based right on campus. Accommodation, we're aware that lots of students want to find out more about accommodation. For our undergraduate and our master's students, we do guarantee accommodation for all of our international students for the duration of their studies in the UK. As long as you apply before those deadlines, you are guaranteed university accommodation. That usually takes the form of 3 or 4 students living together in like an apartment with shared living space, shared kitchen, quite often with their own ensuite private bathroom within that. If you follow the link at the bottom of the page there, accommodation.leeds.ac.uk, you can have a look around at the various options. Lots of it is actually on the campus itself. There is some which is off campus, but often just quite a short walk into the university to access that. There is also a lot of good private options available. So should you choose to go into private accommodation, we can give guidance and support in sourcing that for you too. In terms of fees and scholarships, these do vary depending on the course. Now, obviously, if you are successful in becoming a Marshall Scholar, part of that provision is the fees do get paid for, they get covered. But if you would also select or opt to come by yourself, there would be a tuition fee payable. We do offer international scholarships, so that is something worth bearing in mind. These do change from year to year, and they do vary in the amounts. This last year just gone, we had scholarships available specifically for students from the United States. There was a £6,000 tuition fee deduction for any master's student with a US passport. So that is automatically deducted from your tuition fee. And we also have things called International Excellence Scholarships as well. These are competitive, so they're not automatic awards, but they do offer up to £16,000 to be deducted from tuition fees. And importantly, we do allow stacking of scholarships as well. So, you know, should you not be a Marshall awardee, or, you know, you are looking for funding options, there are options available within the university. And it is, you know, also worth noting that should you be taking out federal government loans to fund your study, they can be combined with these scholarships as well. So they're all there to help bring the overall cost of study down for our US students who are coming with us. Now, in terms of applying and entry requirements, again, these sorts of things do vary depending on the course. For master's students, which I think will be the majority of students on the call today, you would need a bachelor's degree from a recognised university in the US, and we would set a minimum GPA, which would depend on what our UK entry requirements are. So in the UK, we have degree classifications as opposed to a GPA system. You have a first class degree. You have an upper second class, often styled as a 2.1, 2.1, and you have a lower second class styled as a 2.2. If we require an upper second class for entry onto a degree program, we would ask for an overall cumulative GPA of 3.0 from a US degree. If we were looking for a second class lower, a 2.2 as it's known, we'd ask for a cumulative GPA of 2.5. We don't at the moment, I believe, have any courses which ask for the equivalent of a first class degree. But if you are getting a first class degree, that would make any application for one of our excellent scholarships a lot more competitive. So for that, we would be looking for 3.5 and upwards as an equivalent of a first class degree. The degree normally needs to be in a relevant background. There are some subject areas where we can have a little bit more flexibility. We do state the specific entry requirements on the course program pages though. So once you understand exactly what it is you want to study, do visit the course programs. I'll stick a link in the chat so you can easily click through to that. And then you'll be able to do that translation between what we're saying in terms of a 2.1, a 2.2 and the GPA requirements that we will have from you. Any students who are interested in a PhD, we say you normally need a master's degree with some research experience. We do on occasion admit students who haven't got a master's degree. Normally they would be expected to have some quite significant research experience at undergraduate level. We know that's not always available on undergraduate degrees, but you know, that's a conversation that you would have with your prospective research supervisor. Most of our PhD students coming in are coming in on the back of a research proposal that they have provided to us. So we do have some ready-made PhDs that you can apply to. They are very specific and they're normally attached to specific research grants that we've got, streams of funding for particular areas. But I'd say the majority of students are coming to us and providing their own overview of what they want to study. There's a lot of guidance given on our website about PhDs and the application process. So if anybody is interested in a PhD, I would point you towards that. And again, I'll stick some links in the chat so you can follow that through there. In terms of the process of applying, I'd say it's fairly self-explanatory. Visit the course page, have a look at the entry requirements. If you think you're a good fit for the program, you create your own account on the online portal, a bit like creating an account for anything these days. You know, you give us some details about yourself, you set yourself up with a username and password, and then you go through and you complete that online application form. All of our degrees will require you to write a personal statement. So this is a shortish essay just outlining why you have a particular interest in that program. We're not expecting students to necessarily be the experts in that subject area. I think really what we're looking for is a good understanding of what's going to be studied on that program. You know, some evidence that you have taken the time to go through and have a look at the curricula, understand what's involved in it. Maybe you've done some research, some reading around that area, but really it's your chance just to show your enthusiasm. I think at the end of the day, your academic background is going to speak to your academic prowess and your ability to complete the program. What we want to see is that enthusiasm. We want to see that you are going to be a dedicated student who's going to interact in the classroom, put their hand up and really be involved in these global classrooms that we're so keen to cultivate. Once you've submitted the application, the admissions teams are normally pretty quick at assessing these and coming back to you. There are some deadlines published on the website for when you can expect to get a decision by. But normally we are working to within 8 weeks turnaround. Quite often it's a lot less than that. Now, for those who are interested in postgraduate research, this is a bit more of a convoluted process. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we're looking at research proposals and we have to match you up with a research supervisor who's a good fit for you. Essentially, we need to be able to supervise this research. We need to be experts in that area or in a very closely related field. And there needs to be a good fit between what you want to do and what we're carrying out at the university. So I would always suggest that students do explore the research that we're doing at Leeds at the moment. All of our academic faculty will list on their pages what their current research interests are. They'll give examples of students that they've recently supervised. And quite often on the school pages, they'll have summaries of the key themes that we're researching at the moment. So do take some time to review these, to read through that, and to really locate your research where it would sit within the university. If you are looking for scholarships or sources of funding for research, we do have a webpage dedicated to that. That's leeds.ac.uk/research degrees funding. So worth giving that a review to see if there's something which aligns nicely with what you want to do. And you will need to provide us with all of your supporting documentation. This is the same for masters or for PhD students. So that's copies of your undergraduate and master's degree, a copy of your passport, that personal statement, and potentially some references in there too. And again, for those PhD applications, they do come back to you as quickly as possible. But a word of warning, it can take a little longer to match your research up with an appropriate supervision team. So it can take a little longer, but the teams will communicate with you throughout that process. So the last couple of things before I'll open the floor to any questions. I am an alumni of the University of Leeds. I did my bachelor's and my master's there. I've come back to the work that I think it's a wonderful institution, but crucially, I am paid to say that the University of Leeds is great. That's my job. I often think the best thing for you guys to do is to hear it from the horse's mouth. So we have a team of current students who will give you their unvarnished opinions on what it's like to study in Leeds, the challenges they've had, what they've enjoyed, what they've got out of it, you know, top tips for arriving in Leeds, what they found different about Leeds, what they wish they'd known about Leeds before they came that they know now. We do have US students involved in this scheme as well. So if you visit leeds.ac.uk, link to Leeds, there are the opportunities there to connect with students. You can filter and search them by where they're from in the world, or you can do it by what they're studying. So there's options there to really get to those students who are maybe doing something in your specific subject area. The feedback we get from prospective students is that they find this very, very helpful. So please do make the most of that resource. So lastly, just to say, we're not just going away after today's session. We are available to help you. There are some generic email addresses on there. internationaloffice@leeds.ac.uk is the main one. But I'm just typing in my own email address to the chat, my name. So should you have any questions that you don't get answered today, or you suddenly remember a question afterwards that you wanted to ask, or you think of something new, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm always very, very happy to help in whatever way I can. So on that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and potentially open the floor up for any questions. So Christina, you're interested in exercise science physiology. Yeah, I mean, we certainly do lots in this area. Feel free to type in the chat or come off mute if you like. Is this at master's level? Is it PhD?
Not for me particularly, but for some of my students. Yeah, and I know from the literature that, various top tier journals, you're pushing publications out. I guess a question for you in that regard is, for a student who's looking to pursue a PhD, certainly they should be reaching out and contacting prospective committee chairs or whoever they want to be researching with. If it were a one-year master's, although research, should they still be reaching out?
So yes, certainly for the PhD, it's a good idea to reach out. Oh, apologies, we have an errant cat who's made its way. Apologies. I also have a 4-month-old son, so I'm just happy that he didn't make his way onto the screen as well. Certainly for PhD, yeah, it is important to reach out. I would always say you need to think about the way that you are reaching out. We get lots of approaches that are quite undifferentiated, quite unconsidered. I would say that if you can take the time to identify the potential supervisor, the research that they've been doing, I'm not just saying that you drop that into the conversation, but it would certainly help if you shape your approach to them around why what you want to do aligns nicely with what they want to do. You're certainly likely to find a more positive initial response if you do something like that. When it comes to one-year master's courses, we do have a limited number of MRes courses, which are masters in research. And yeah, you can certainly reach out to the program leads on those, and they will be quite clearly listed on the website as to who you should get in touch with. It probably is a little bit less important than for those PhD students, though, where it's an absolute must that you go down that track.
Thanks. And have you heard any themes of kind of transitions for U.S. students to studying at Leeds, whether challenges or pleasant surprises?
It's a really good question. I mean, we've had a real boost in the numbers of US students coming in the last couple of years. I would like to think it's because of all of the great promotional work we do about Leeds in the US, but there may be some other factors which are playing into this as well. Generally speaking, and I do take the time to meet and speak with our students, our American students, they have pretty good feedback. I think the transition is less challenging than it probably is for some other nationalities when we're coming. I would say there's greater alignment in kind of what we teach at the undergraduate levels, the sort of skills and capabilities that we see students having. For example, I think there's a great emphasis placed on independent learning in our bachelor's degrees, which I know is mirrored in lots of the US institutions as well. So fewer challenges in that regards. There may be challenges outside of the classroom. I always think that the US and the UK, we have many great similarities, but also many great differences as well. So it's not the same. Living in New York or LA or Houston or wherever you're based in the US, there are going to be some cultural differences when you come to the UK, which is why I do encourage the US students to attend that International Orientation Week. Some of it is a bit nuts and bolts, and US students will be thinking, why is this so relevant for me? But there are some nuggets in there which really lay down the expectations of what we want you to be providing in terms of you as a student, but also how to get the best out of yourself in the classroom. Making sure that you're very aware of the referencing systems that we use in the UK. Make sure that you're not tripping over some hurdles that are very easily avoided. Generally speaking, we find that the American students, they love being in Leeds. They often say to me, I wish I'd known more about Leeds when I was doing my initial stages of research. There's probably more going on in the city than people probably realize. The analogy I always give to some of our UK students is, if I gave them the option of studying in New York, LA, or I don't know, Albuquerque, well, they've probably never heard of Albuquerque, so they don't know all of the cool stuff that's happening there. Maybe I'm not trying to downsell Albuquerque there. Maybe it has got a great music scene. I don't know, but that's kind of the point. But I think at Leeds there is so much going on outside of the classroom. We rarely have any students complaining to us that it is too quiet, or there's not enough going on for them, or they don't feel fulfilled outside of the classroom as well. So yeah, my advice is always, of course, you're coming to study here, particularly if it's for a master's degree. You really need to throw yourself into that master's because it is that 1 year program, and it is quite an intense program. But really try to squeeze out of that year in Leeds everything that you possibly can outside the classroom. The culture that Leeds has to offer, the opportunities that are there for you, but also all of the rest of the stuff, which is about developing your CV, networking with all of these other students who are from all around the world. You never know when those connections are going to come useful again.
Great. Work hard, play hard.
Yeah. So have we got any other questions? Does anybody else want to pop in the chat their particular area, their particular academic discipline? Don't be shy.
I'll ask a question about admissions if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, please, Christina, go ahead.
So the way you described it, we use a term called rolling admission, where as people are applying, you're making decisions.
Correct.
As you go. Does a student who maybe delays that application run the risk of a program being full?
It's a good question. I would say for the majority of programs, the answer would be no. For the majority of programs, we will have a deadline which is publicized that you have to apply by. On occasion, there have been programs which have got full and we've had to stop applications, but I can kind of count those on one hand. I would always recommend getting applications in by the end of January. I would say is a safe time. It would be very, very rare that we would close any program before the end of January. But as I say, I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've come across that happening. We don't do gathered fields applications. So, we are making those decisions as and when they come. I mean, another advantage of applying early is that once you have your offer, you can then start applying for funding and scholarships and things like that. So, there are other good reasons to get those applications in early. You could also then start thinking about, well, the other research that you have to do. Where do I want to live? Am I going to be booking flights, applying for your visa, sourcing funding if you're applying for federal loans or going for a scholarship scheme like Marshall? There are other things to consider in addition to that admissions. So yeah, always better to apply earlier if at all possible.
Great, thanks.
You're very welcome. Michael, I can see that we have you on the screen now. Is your sound working now?
I've found a temporary solution. I hope you can hear me now. I can see myself, which is an improvement. Apologies again to everybody for my technical difficulties earlier. Like I say, it's a temporary solution. They've not been rectified yet, but it allows me to say thank you in person. Thanks very much, Finn, for this really good, great presentation. Thanks everybody for attending. Please do ask any more questions if there are any.
I mean, if there's no further questions, then please do feel to reach out via the email address that I've dropped in the chat. Always very happy to hear from you. I might not always be the best person to answer the question, but I can quickly find out who is that person and get those answers to you as soon as possible. Oh, I can see that we have a question being typed. as we speak, or maybe a couple. Has anybody been to the UK before? Christina, you've been to the UK, and did you manage to make your way to Leeds, or did you confine yourself to London and Oxford?
I did more what you all call fell walking. So in the more remote areas, yeah, up in the Cotswolds and Lake District.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I mean, one of the good things about Leeds, and I didn't touch upon this in my presentation, we are in the county of Yorkshire, which people from Yorkshire call God's own county. I'll let you be the judge of that, but it really is a beautiful part of the world. Yes, we're in quite a big city, but there are 2 national parks right on the edge of where we are. From where I live, just outside of Leeds, I could probably get to the Lake District in an hour and 20 minutes, something like that. So yeah, I mean, one of the advantages of studying in the UK is, it is a small geography. So, there are opportunities to visit all different parts of the country whilst you're here. So dust off those fell walking boots if you ever do come back, Christina. Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, I guess the only thing left to say is thank you very much for attending. Always happy to hear from you, and yeah, I hope to be in touch with some of you in the near future.
Right, thank you very much, Finn, and goodbye from the Marshall Scholarship as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.